Now, with past life regression, remember I explained that around a past life regression therapist, there are literally thousands and thousands of spirits who want an opportunity to talk through a person to a therapist. And the reason why those spirits are present, if I could draw it, it's sort of like, here's the therapist, here's the person who's going through past life regression, and then surrounding the therapist, there are literally in the spirit world thousands and thousands, usually, of people who are in a fairly dark place in the spirit world generally. They've had quite a traumatic time in the spirit world. They've yet to work out, many of them are yet to work out that they actually died. Those of them that have worked out that they've died have a lot of confusion, because when you think about it, most people on earth have no firm conviction about what happens when you die, do they? And because they have no firm conviction, when they pass over into the spirit world, they still have no idea really what's happening to them. And so what they often do is they surround a person on earth who allows them to talk to other people, or surround a medium on earth, a spirit medium or somebody who can communicate with spirits around, and they surround that medium for an opportunity to talk, basically. An opportunity to try or attempt to resolve some of their questions. Does that make sense? So what they do is they surround a person who is a past life regression therapist, and they wait for an opportunity for this person to become open to their suggestions. And once that person goes through usually some kind of hypnotic process, the person then becomes overcloaked with one of those spirits. So one of those spirits talks directly through the person. Does that make sense? Now, this has been known for many hundreds of years, actually, that this is possible. And in fact, in the early 30s, last week I mentioned a book that you can read that was written in 1930 called 30 Years Among the Dead. And it's actually describing a man who was a doctor. So that was a man who was a doctor, and his wife was a medium. And what they would do is they would get people who have incurable diseases, seemingly, and they would always be able to talk to the spirits who were involved in the disease, and they finished up being able to cure the people that had so-called incurable diseases. Now that book is called 30 Years Amongst the Dead, if you want to read that. And it's written by a man called Dr. Carl Wickland. And I need, those pens are not very clear. Yeah. You've got my rest of this. And that book explains the process of this overcloaking that occurs, where a spirit talks through a person. Now, I've heard of many occasions, and I've talked to many past life regression therapists who have had one person come in many times, some of them even one person come in hundreds of times, and every single time there's a different person that speaks through them, and they then assume that means that that person had that past life. But it's really just a spirit speaking through the person about his life or her life. That's all it is. But everyone then assumes that it's a past life. Right? Is there any questions about that before I continue? Yes? Just hang on a second, just wait for the mic to be pointed at you.
You mentioned it was quite dangerous to do that kind of therapy because these spirits could jump on the therapist, or?
It's dangerous because what you're doing is you're assuming that it's something different than it is. That's the danger. There's one thing, like if this therapist knew that primarily what she was doing was helping those spirits, and this person here knew that primarily what she was doing was being a channel for those spirits, then everything would be in harmony with truth and it would be okay. But this person here often does not know that. They think that they're actually that this is a past life of their own, which they're trying to resolve. And this therapist thinks it's a past life of this person as well. And so they're no longer believing the truth. And when you no longer believe the truth, you place yourself in a more dangerous position where you start accepting things as true that are not true anymore. And that's the danger. Not only that, you may, in fact, if this person is unaware, this person here is unaware of what is happening, this spirit may become permanently attached to that person, because they can now speak through that person whenever they want, and so they like that as an option, and so they become permanently attached to the person. Now, you can see there's some fairly big dangers in that, yes? Because when you become permanently attached to another person, you give up your own will and you start doing the things the other person wants you to do. And that's quite a dangerous thing to do. So there are dangers in this past life regression therapy if you don't understand the truth of what's going on. Now, and every time I've talked to a therapist who does this, the majority of times the therapist has become very angry with me, right? Because a lot of the times the therapist doesn't want to come to terms with the fact that what they think is happening is not actually happening at all, and it's something completely different. Yeah? And anger is always a sign that we're not being humble. Does that make sense? Anger is always a sign that we're not being humble. And remember, in the very first talk I gave to you last weekend on Saturday here, remember I said that humility is one of the most important qualities you can develop as a person. Remember, the basic three qualities were love, truth, and humility. They are the basic three qualities. And whenever somebody gets angry, they're already out of humility. They're already not being humble. They're already not wanting to experience their own feelings or emotions. And the problem with this kind of situation, we're also out of harmony with truth in that we're accepting something as true when there could have a completely different alternative explanation to what we believe. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah?
Healer, with hands on, they do also this healings, and are they also taking out bad spirits of the people?
Often spirits are helping them take out bad spirits from a person, but the actual cure, the reason why the spirit is attracted in the first place hasn't been cured. I would like to talk about medical conditions in a minute, separate to this issue, because actually it's interesting that many medical conditions are actually very similar to what people have been believing are reincarnation experiences. For example, the medical condition of manic depression, schizophrenia, and also the medical condition of dissociative identity disorder, or what is often called multiple personalities. They are all so-called medical conditions, but they are also very similar to what's happening here, right? And I can discuss all of those things with you. We'll discuss that separately to this issue of reincarnation. Yep. Okay, so last week we talked about past life regression in a lot more detail. So those of you who are new today, feel free to have a look at that download when it comes to you. There's also be an audio file as well that you can listen to if you want to about that.